Hi, and welcome to another episode of InstaVision. I'm Glenn Reynolds. Well, our guest today is Steven Pressfield, who we've actually had before. He's a fascinating guy. He blogs at stevenpressfield.com. He's the author of such hits as The Legend of Bagger Vance and Gates of Fire, which is one of my personal favorites, actually. Now he has two books out at once, actually. One, The Warrior Ethos, is pretty well described by its title, and he's distributed over 18,000 copies to U.S. soldiers at his own expense. The other is a rather bleak novel of our near-term military future called The Profession. I actually got your new book here, The Profession, which I gather is meant to be something of a warning, isn't it? What's the basic outline of this book?
The Profession is kind of a, I'll say it's like a Tom Clancy sort of thriller, set in a kind of a dystopian future about a generation in the future, the year 2032. And you know, what Tom Clancy does when he does a thriller, or anybody does a thriller, is they take a what-if premise. Like, what if the Russians developed a submarine that had a silent drive, and that threatened our American defenses? They could compromise it. And then he takes that what-if premise and he puts a twist to it. Like he'll say, and what if they had one of these prototype submarines, and then the captain turned out to be a renegade who wanted to defect? So in my book, The Profession, the what-if premise is, what if a generation into the future, our conventional U.S. military forces had been withdrawn from the Middle East, but we're still dependent on Middle East oil? What would happen in that case, in that power vacuum? And I think that what would happen is that what would flow into that vacuum would be professional military services, not like, in other words, soldiers for hire, mercenaries, not like the kind of crappy stuff that goes on now, but like in my book, I'm envisioning a really highly professional outfit, you know, run by, say, a General Patton type of general, that kind of thing, that had respect and was a very professional type of outfit. So that's the what-if premise. And then the twist to that is, and what if this general took it in his mind, into his head, that he thought he could be another Caesar and use this power to come back and claim, you know, take over the Republic and as it is. So it's a bit of a story like a 7 Days in May, where there's a kind of the Burt Lancaster character that is the general that has unscrupulous designs, and then he has a kind of a really loyal what do you call it, right-hand man who narrates the story, and he's the one who has the moral crisis of what does he do when a leader that he admires starts kind of going off the reservation. So that's what The Profession is. And The Profession is the profession of arms.
And is it something of a warning? I mean, in a sense, you can see some of these trends. Of course, we have a lot more use of contractors. We're going to theoretically pull U.S. troops out of Iraq in the next year, but we are, in fact, going to leave behind a lot of contractors there now. Do you see this as a warning against going too far in that direction?
Well, I mean, it is just a yarn. It is a story. But I do think that what really rings true to me in the present political environment is, I think the country is getting more and more ripe for what you might call a strong man. You know, I hate to say that, but that's the reality. I mean, paralysis, polarization in politics, and like when Caesar crossed the Rubicon and came back to Rome, he was welcomed. They wanted him. You know, they wanted somebody, even though they knew that he was going to be, you know, it would be the end of the Republic. And so this book is a sort of a cautionary tale about what could happen up ahead. Every day it seems to get truer and truer. As I look at the papers, it's scary.
Yeah, that's the trouble. I interviewed John Ringo a while back. He writes all the dystopian near-future novels, too, and he's always like, you know, I really don't want to live in one of my books. I just want to write them and sell them, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you're writing about a happy future, who's going to read it? You know, it's no fun.
Well, it is the case, you know, that when you have a political system that seems sort of indecisive and incapable of dealing with circumstances, people do look for somebody who's decisive, and that's a reason for political leaders to take their jobs seriously and maybe take a step back from business as usual in tough times. But we certainly haven't seen a whole lot of that in the last couple of years.
No, that's for sure. We could talk about that for a long time. I mean,
well,
please go ahead.
Well, let's not go too far down that road. That's what we do on the rest of PJTV. So let's stay focused on your work. But you know, what are you looking at next? Whenever your book comes out, the next question people always ask is, what are you writing next? Do you have something already cooking?
I do, although I'm kind of superstitious about talking about what I'm working on next, except to say that I know this is bad television, Glenn, but except to say that it's going to be nonfiction, which I've never done before. And it's going to be another war-themed book. It's going to be a big one.
Now, I won't ask you to talk too much. I know I heard John Updike one time say that the more he talked about books in process, the less he felt inclined to actually write them. And I know I feel the same way about writing, so I won't ask you to say too much.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. You know, I can feel the air going out of the balloon just from what little bit I spoke to you about. But
we can't have that.
You want me to talk a little bit about this for a second? I'd like to.
Yes, please do.
This I'll tell you kind of how this came about. When we were talking about promoting the profession, you know, at the publishers a year before it came out, one of the ideas that I really wanted to get behind, since a lot of the people who read my books are in the military, I thought, let's give a bunch of these away. Let's give like 10,000 of these away to the troops in Afghanistan or Iraq, and you know, and see what would happen. Of course, the publishers said, absolutely not. You know, we're in the business to sell books, not to give them away. So I said, well, how about just ebooks? I mean, that doesn't cost anything. Can we give them away? So they said, no, we can't do that. So I said, well, what if I paid for them and we gave them away? They said, well, no, we can't do that. So but I sort of had got this bee in my bonnet about wanting to give something away. And so I thought, well, what could I write that actually would, coming from me, would be accepted, you know? Not from Chesty Puller or from General Petraeus or anything. And one of the things that people write to me from Afghanistan, soldiers and Marines write to me about Gates of Fire, the story about the 300 Spartans. What is that, what they love about that book is, above and beyond whatever you want to say about the writing of it, is just that warrior ethos of the Spartans. That kind of reminds them why they're there, why they're doing what they're doing. And even, you know, when you and I did our last interview here on PJTV, I actually stole this idea from you. If you remember, you had the title of that thing was The Warrior Ethos. So I thought, that's a great idea. So I thought, nobody has really kind of, at least to my satisfaction, has really defined it. You know, what is it? I mean, people that join the military, that's why they join. They join because they kind of feel that need to be part of a group that's greater than themselves, a cause that's greater than themselves, and they want to sacrifice, they want to serve, they want something tough. And so I thought, well, let me try to do that. And I thought I would kind of, in writing this warrior ethos, I flash back. There's a lot of stories about the Spartans, a lot of stories about Alexander the Great, stories about Rommel and that kind of thing, the Israelis. And so it's been very well received in the sense of units that are gearing up to go to Afghanistan, where, you know, a company commander or a battalion commander will have everybody in the outfit read the book, and also coming back to transition into civilian life, because one of the points that I make about the warrior ethos is that it can be used in civilian life too. And I find that I, as a writer, use that kind of mindset each day when I have to kind of face the internal demons, the internal enemies that are the equivalent of the external enemies that you know, a combat warrior has to face. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of why I did it. And we also wanted it to be kind of, it's really like small size. You could put it in a cargo pocket of a pair of trousers, you know. And so I don't know, I'm really proud of this. I hope you don't mind me blathering on about this. It was something I really wanted to do, and I think it came out pretty well.
Not at all. I think it's terrific, and I guess I don't get any royalties for the title of a book that didn't get sold for any money. So, oh well.
Well, you're the lawyer.
No, it's a terrific book, and I'm delighted that it's in the hands of so many troops. And thank you for coming and taking the time to talk with us again.
Hey, Glenn, thanks very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure. It's great to see you, and keep up the great work.
Thanks. and that's Stephen Pressfield. He blogs at stephenpressfield.com. He's the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance and really one of my favorite books, Gates of Fire. And he's got 2 books out now, The Warrior Ethos, which we just talked about, and also his cautionary tale thriller, The Profession, a look at warfare in the not too distant, but hopefully not too likely future. Well, that's all for this episode of InstaVision. I'm Glenn Reynolds. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, have fun on the internet. Thanks.